It was a crisp spring morning when Tom Bradley stepped out of his farmhouse to check on a missing calf. The air smelled of damp grass and hay, but something felt off. As he crested the hill overlooking his field, his jaw dropped. There, in the middle of his pasture, stood a massive white tent, surrounded by folding chairs, flower arches, and a string quartet tuning up like they were at a fancy gala. A chocolate fountain gurgled next to his rusty tractor, and strangers in crisp suits bustled about, carrying trays of champagne. One of them, a guy in a slick blazer, waved at Tom like he was the hired help. It would have been hilarious if it wasn't so infuriating. Tom, 57, had lived on this land his whole life. It was his grandfather's before it was his, a quiet stretch of earth where he'd raised cattle and grown hay for decades. Now it looked like a Hollywood movie set. He blinked hard, half expecting it to vanish, then marched down the hill, dodging luxury cars parked carelessly on his grass. Some were idling, their drivers chatting like this was a country club valet lot. He stopped beside an older man tying streamers to a tree and asked, as calmly as his rising blood pressure allowed, "What's going on here?" "Wedding," the man said with a grin, nodding at the tent. "My niece is tying the knot. Isn't it gorgeous?" Tom's stomach twisted. "On whose land?" The man's smile faltered. "The community green lot," he said like Tom was clueless. Tom didn't bother arguing. He wove through stacks of wine crates until he found the woman in charge. She wore oversized sunglasses, a headset, and an air of someone who didn't have time for nonsense. When he asked who'd given permission, she waved a permit in his face like swatting a fly. "We've got approval. Talk to the HOA," she snapped, already turning away. Tom took the paper, scanning it. Parcel 47C, labeled Community Green Lot. Except there was no HOA here. Never had been. And Parcel 47C? That was his field, part of the homestead his family had owned since before the county paved its first road. He handed the paper back, his voice low but firm. "This is my land. Not the HOA's. Mine," the woman scoffed. "Sir, I don't have time for this. The brides are EVYing soon. Maybe go sit on your porch and let us handle this." She flashed a patronizing smile and strutted off. Tom didn't respond. He was too stunned, and then he noticed something worse. The 3 roads leading to the field were blocked with signs and balloon garlands for the wedding. Every guest, every vendor, had driven down 2 old gravel stretches Tom hadn't thought about in years. Roads he'd inherited from his father. Roads still in his name. He crouched by one, yanking up a stake holding a garland. Just dirt beneath, no survey markers, no HOA flags. His land? His roads. The realization hit like a thunderclap. They'd built their fairy tale wedding on his field, but the only way in or out was through roads they didn't know he owned. Back at the house, Tom dug out an old tin box from under his bedroom floorboards. Inside were yellow documents, brittle but clear. The deed to the field. The titles to the roads. The HOA had never bought them. The county hadn't annexed them. Some developer had assumed they were public, but the transfer never happened. Tom's name was still on every file. A multi-$1,000 wedding, fancy cars, champagne pyramids, out-of-town guests was balanced on land that could be pulled out from under them like a rug. And nobody had bothered to knock on his door. Tom didn't get mad. That wasn't his way. He brewed a pot of black coffee, sat on his porch, and watched the planners scurry like ants. A pop song blared from a sound system, echoing through the hills. He spotted the HOA president, Lisa Harmon, arguing by a catering truck. She'd been after his land for years, always with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Maybe this was her way of ignoring his. No. Tom chuckled, not because it was funny, but because it was reckless. They hadn't done their homework, and they were about to learn why that was a mistake. He called his old friend Jack, a retired lawyer who loved a good fight. "You won't believe what the HOA's done," Tom said. "They threw a wedding on my field. Tents, flowers, the works." Jack laughed. "You sell it?" "Nope. Wrong parcel. And get this, a road's in. Mine too. Silence on the line, then Jack's voice, gleeful. Tom, you're about to have the best day of your life. By sunrise, Tom had his plan. He installed 2 heavy gates on the access roads, both wide open for now. Guests in pastel suits and designer sunglasses rolled in, oblivious to the man leaning against a fence post, watching. The planner hurried past with a clipboard, barking orders into her headset. Groomsmen jogged by, laughing, tossing petals. None noticed the glint of metal hinges in the morning light. Tom waited until the crowd thickened, then walked to the first gate and slid it shut. The latch clicked loud enough to cut through the chatter. He locked the second gate, then set up a folding table on his porch with a cash box, a red cooler, and a sign. Access fee, pay here. An hour later, the chaos began. A black sedan honked at the lower gate, then circled to the upper one, only to find it locked too. The driver got out, tugged at the chain, and stood there, baffled. A wine delivery truck stopped next, its driver gesturing wildly before GIVYing up. Guests inside the field started noticing. One man in a blue sports coat stormed up to Tom's table, slapping the sign. You trying to be funny, old man? Tom smiled. Nope. Just running a toll booth, same as your HOA's gate fees. The man barked. This isn't an HOA road. Exactly, Tom said. That shut him up. Lisa Harmon arrived in a ribbon-decked golf cart, her face red before she even spoke. She marched up, heels sinking into the dirt. Unlock those gates now. You're ruining a wedding. No, ma'am, Tom said. I'm protecting my property and regulating my roads. She demanded to see the deed. He held up his folder. You don't have it. I do. You're on my land, my roads. Lisa snapped. We have permits. Wrong parcel, Tom said. Checked yesterday. Her face twitched. You're doing this to make a point. No, he said. You held a wedding on my land without asking and drove 50 cars down my roads without paying. That's on you. She threatened to call the sheriff. Tom beat her to it, dialing the local office and requesting a deputy for a land access dispute. He gave the parcel and road numbers clearly, said he'd have the deed ready. Lisa stood frozen as he hung up. Down at the field, the music stopped. Guests huddled, whispering, some shaking the gates in vain. 30 minutes later, a sheriff's SUV pulled up. The deputy, a no-nonsense guy named Carl, reviewed Tom's documents, made a radio call, then walked to where Lisa and her crowd waited. Tom couldn't hear the words, but he saw Lisa's arms drop, her clipboard hit the grass. The deputy pointed at the gates, then at Tom. Lisa's face burned. Carl returned, shook Tom's hand. You're in the right. CIVYL matter now. Call if they damage anything. Guests started approaching Tom's table. An older couple paid with an apologetic look. A man grumbled but handed over cash. A woman offered a check. Tom pointed at the cash box. The line grew, anger GIVYing way to resignation. They'd mocked him, ignored him, but now he held the keys to their exit, and he was within his rights to charge for every inch of gravel they'd crossed. The wedding limped on. The bride arrived late, her dress a cloud of ivory, stepping from a limousine parked awkwardly by the locked gate. The orchestra played half-heartedly. The planner's smile was brittle as she urged guests to stay calm. But the cocktail station ran dry, no delivery trucks could get through. Guests muttered along the fence, stunned they had to pay to leave a wedding. Lisa glared from the tent's edge, her polished facade cracking, her hair frizzing in the heat. Tom sat at his table, calm as a country tollkeeper, sharper than anyone had guessed. A man in a suit tried to argue the roads were public. Tom explained the deed, the history, and pointed to Carl's card by the cash box. The man paid, fuming. A bridesmaid, desperate to catch a flight, sat on a log, phone useless with no signal. No rides could get in. Tom walked his fence line, checking posts and locks, not for show but because it was his routine. Every step drew eyes, every jingle of his keys silenced the crowd like a warning bell. The groom, under a rose-wrapped arch, kept glancing at the road, sensing the day's cost was more than he'd planned. A guest tried to pick a lock behind a bush, thinking he was sly. Tom's boots crunched over, and a throat clear sent the man scrambling back to the field. Guests lined up again, some joking nervously, one woman laughing that this was the wildest wedding she'd been to. "Keep the receipt," Tom said, handing her one. "Frame it." She grinned. Lisa wasn't laughing. She stormed up with a man who looked like a lawyer, briefcase in hand. "You're holding them hostage," he accused. "I'm enforcing my property," Tom said. The man waved papers, threatening court. Tom held up his folder. "Deeds registered since '74. Sheriff signed off. Any questions?" The man faltered, packed up, and left, Lisa trailing him, defeated. By dusk, the fairy lights couldn't hide the tension. Guests posed for photos with forced smiles, whispering about the man with the cash box. Tom locked the gates for the night, leaving stragglers to wait till morning. He wasn't cruel, but he wasn't opening his roads for people who'd trampled his alfalfa and unplugged his barn's power. On his porch, coffee in hand, he listened to the fading music and smiled. They'd planned a dream wedding. They got a reality check. Morning brought a quiet field, guests huddled under heaters or sleeping in cars. Lisa approached, wrinkled and tired, her voice softer. "You've made your point. We'll pay due law $1,000 to open the gates." Tom sipped his coffee. "You held a wedding on my land, disrupted my livestock, tapped my power. 1,000 doesn't cut it." Her jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "Respect," he said. "An apology, full damages, a public acknowledgement, and a guarantee no more stunts on my land." Lisa offered Dula $5,000. Tom shook his head. "I'll make it public myself. Media's already calling." The cleanup crew arrived, hauling trash and reseeding ruts. Tom drafted an invoice, cleanup costs, legal fees, gate installation, tolls collected. He mailed it to the HOA, certified. At the post office, the clerk grinned. "You're the wedding guy. My cousin saw the VY Deo. Epic." A Channel 4 reporter caught him outside, asking for a statement. Tom kept it simple. "They used my land without asking. Rights matter." The story exploded local news, then national. Online, he was the farmer who held a wedding hostage. Farmers and landowners cheered. HOA members squirmed. Lisa's HOA board met in crisis. She blamed everyone but herself, but memes of her yelling by the gate spread like wildfire. Her resignation followed. The HOA paid Tom's invoice, agreed to no further trespassing, and issued a statement admitting their error. Days later, Lisa drove up, no clipboard, just a note. "We were wrong." "Thank you." Tom nodded, said nothing. The field healed, grass regrowing, but the lesson lingered. Tom threw a barbecue, inviting friends, the sheriff, the cleanup crew. Cars parked where he said, no one crossed the line. Kids laughed, music played, and the air felt right again. He hung a framed photo above his fireplace, him at the toll table, hat tipped, with the caption, "Respect the fence." 2 signs went up on his roads. "Private access only," and "Welcome to respectful country." Nobody crossed without knocking.